Good morning, everyone. I'm Malini Sengupta. I am the e-coordinator, Yellowknife Immigration Partnership. Today, I have Alec with me, and we would be doing a presentation on immigration and employment. Um, just give me 1 second. I'm going to be coming into, so this is the section. Alec is joining us from Set It Now. And so this presentation will take us through a section of immigration where not only permanent residents and citizens, but also temporary foreign workers getting affected. We will also cover employment related issues for both temporary foreign worker as well as permanent residents and citizens. So the topic for today, as I said, it's immigration and employment. I would be taking care of the immigration part, and the employment section would be taken care by Alec. So we are going to be covering what are the travel bans are in place, measures Canada is taking, what's happening at the CBSA port of entry and in service Canada, what's happening in NWT, so in our territory, and what are the client impacts. There are two fact sheets also along with this. One fact sheet is about immigration issues outside Canada, and then other one fact sheet is the immigration issues inside Canada. If you want to also know a little bit about the acronyms which we are using, as you can see, there's a CBSA port of entry. Just click on the link below here, and it will take you to the acronyms which has been written by IRCC. So the first important topic is what are the travel bans are due to coronavirus. So right now, currently, all Canadian citizens and permanent residents are allowed to enter Canada. US are allowed, but only for essential travels. Travelers on transits, air crews, diplomats, family members of Canadian citizens are allowed to come. So when we are talking about family members, there is a particular definition to this. I know this probably, I have to zoom it a little bit more. So when we are talking about family members, as per OIC, it is important to know that your spouse and common law partner, your dependent child of yourself and your partner, your dependent child of dependent child, parent or step parents of the person, and guardian or tutor of the person. One thing is very important when there is a guardian or tutor, they have to demonstrate that they have been staying with the minor.
Malini, may I ask you one question?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was one interesting situation with one client who is Canadian citizen, but her mother, who is old, and she's foreign country citizen, and she's stuck at this moment in her brother's small apartment in New York with
Mm-hmm.
brother, his wife, and 3 children.
Mm-hmm.
So that client wanted that mother comes to visit her at this difficult time because she has a big house with a garden.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so she wanted to know if it is possible that she gets Canadian visa.
Mm-hmm.
She heard as well that she will need some kind of written authorization. So do you know how she could get it and from whom?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, in the fact sheets and outside Canada, you will see a letter called reunification letter. So, anybody who is a foreign national and is a family member of a Canadian citizen, they can travel to Canada, but they have to get a reunification letter from GATT, that's Global Affair Canada, and you have to show that you have non-discretionary reason
Oh,
for joining your family member in Canada.
okay. So you mentioned reunification letter. So it's not so this written authorization she mentioned. So it means that it's reunification letter, right?
Yes, it's a reunification letter, and you have to go to, it has to be issued by Global Affairs Canada.
Okay, and you mentioned also non-discretionary travel. What was that exactly?
Okay, that's also a really good question. So, in terms of non-discretionary travel, again, let me zoom in so that you guys can read this. Um, so, you have to understand that foreign nationals just cannot come to Canada because they want to celebrate birthday or anniversary or just travel for holidays. It has to be a really, really important visit, and regardless whether the foreign national is traveling from United States or any other country, at the port of entry they will have to self quarantine for a period of 14 days, and also they have to make sure they establish at the port of entry where they're staying, how they will do the grocery, how will they get medicines without going out to the store, whether there will be a vulnerable people where they are staying. These informations are very, very important for the officers to make a decision for you to travel back to Canada.
Oh, thank you for this answer.
Okay, the next important are the dates, the prohibition dates of entry to Canada.
Mm. What are the end of these dates? Sorry.
Okay, so the prohibition dates are basically all the acts. So quarantine act, we keep on hearing, oh, we have to quarantine for 14 days. But this quarantine act for mandatory isolation ends in June 30th. But again, please know that all these information are updated on a daily basis by IRCC. So you have to really go and check before you even say that, oh, mandatory isolation is not needed. For under Quarantine Act, there's prohibition to enter Canada from any other country other than US ends on June 30th. Prohibition to enter into Canada from US as of now ends on May 21st. But again, please make sure you have to check these dates before you make a decision on IRCC. Canadian citizens and permanent residents are expected are basically exempt from travel restrictions returning. But as of returning to Canada, they have to self-isolate themselves for 14 days. And there are penalties if they don't do that.
So if they don't isolate themselves, so there are the penalties you mentioned. What are these
Yes.
penalties
Okay,
exactly?
very good question. So these penalties are when you arrive to Canada by air or land, um, we assess your health. So whoever is coming at the port of entry, their health would be assessed. You're exempted from so you're if you're exempted from travel restrictions, you have to quarantine for 14 days, which we mentioned. The penalties are follows out here. So it is on the fact sheet of Outside Canada. A fine up to $750,000, 6 months of jail time, or being found inadmissible, removed from Canada, and banned from entering Canada for 1 year. In terms of new application for permanent residence and temporary resident visa, they're still accepting at a very low capacity. But the good news is most of the people who are getting these permanent residency are from within Canada.
Okay, so it means, is it a good time to apply PR through Express Entry now?
Yes, it's a great time to apply for permanent residency if you're within Canada, because if you look at the last draw, which was on May 13th or May 12th or 13th, was jumped up to from 450 to 718. So that means they are PNP candidates. So if you have a provincial nomination, this is a great time to apply. One of the main reason is Canada is focusing to give a permanent residency invitation to people who are inside Canada. Foreign nationals with temporary resident will not be able to enter other than essential services.
Okay, can you specify these essential services?
Yeah. So again, go back to refer to the Immigration Outside Canada sheet, and you will find essential services under section here. So if you click on this section, it will take you to the list of essential services established by IRCC. It's energy, information technology, finance, health, food, water, transportation, safety, government, and manufacturing.
Okay, thank you. So just one example to be sure. For example, I found a job as an IT responsible for cyber incidents in the
Mm-hmm.
manufacturing sector, more
Mm-hmm.
precisely in a company which produces an industrial supplies. Am I exempt from travel restrictions?
Okay, so that's a great question. So you know how you saw IT is out there, but you have to go in this section under. So he's an IT guy, but he comes from a manufacturing sector. So go under manufacturing sector, and you will see the list of people who are able to come. So manufacturing sector means workers for upstream supply chain, for essential service needed for support critical infrastructure. So until and unless it's under this section, that person would not be granted temporary residency.
Okay.
Uh, Person holding permanent residency. So this is for approved permanent residency candidates. So person who's holding permanent resident visa, or what we call the CORP, which is confirmation of permanent residency, who cannot travel within the validity of their document. They basically have to inform IRCC by web form, and this document, if this document expires, they have to inform IRCC, and the file will be reviewed in the 90 days. So it's really, really crucial for you guys to make sure that you adhere to this norm.
So, for example, if somebody receives PR and
Mm-hmm.
but doesn't have a confirmation of PR, can that
Mm-hmm.
person come to Canada?
Great question. So again, go into this section from outside Canada under approved permanent residency. So one thing you have to make sure, if you are, so the question is if they're outside Canada, am I correct? And they have permanent residency. So
Yeah.
if their permanent residency has been approved online as on March 18, 2020, noon Eastern Daylight saving, they can travel. Okay, the foreign nationals can obviously the foreign national has to self isolate, uh, can self isolate to these airlines at the point of boarding, that they are exempted under the provision by presenting a permanent residency visa or a corp. So you know this section which says a person whose application for permanent residency was approved under the IRCC, who received written notice of approval before noon Eastern Daylight, March 18th. Please remember this. But who has not become a permanent residency under the Act, these foreign nationals can self-isolate to airlines at the point of boarding, that they are exempted under the provision by presenting their PR visa or their corp document. Okay.
Okay, I see.
Uh,
Okay, I mean, for example, if somebody received confirmation of PR, but the interview got canceled,
Okay,
what's happening?
so that's basically you're saying the landing interview. So
Hmm.
we know now CIC basically has cancelled all the in-person permanent residency landing interview. But if you have received a corp and your, let's say, work permit is expiring, you can have the landing appointments done by telephone. So there's a link in the presentation you have to click, and you have to look at the process of that.
Okay.
Some of the measures which have been taken in Canada now, one of them is the landing interview, which I just said. Also, try and remember that all the inland offices are operating but at a very low capacity. So the medicals will be extended in case-to-case basis again. Uh, if you have missing documents, IRCC is giving you extra time, so 90 days, both for medical examination and biometrics. All citizenship tests and ceremonies are now being cancelled to further notice. All interviews within IRCC again have been cancelled, and persons who are wishing to make refugee must notify in writing. What are the other measures? Foreign nationals who cannot leave may apply for extension of status.
Okay, so there's a foreign national who is worker, and he had a closed work permit and got fired because of COVID. So
Hmm.
does it mean that he can obtain a new work permit if he finds a new employer who is ready to hire him?
Okay. Again, great question. So go into this section of change in conditions of work permit. So what you're saying is there is a foreign national who is within Canada. So this is on the fact sheet of Inside Canada. And they have got fired from their current job, but they have another job offer letter. So here in this section, it says very clearly, if you're currently working in Canada and want to change your condition on your work permit, so change of length, employer or occupation, you must apply for a new work permit. You should always apply at least 30 days before your status has been expired. Some special circumstances presented in the guide can an initial work permit be applied within Canada are when you have a valid study permit or a work permit. Okay, so this is really important. So these section, if you can see, these are the people who can apply for new work permit. Another good news which has come in is the section of LMIA. So if you go again further down, work permit extension. So LMIA based work permit. So the question also comes, if I want to extend my expiring work permit, but I don't have a new LMIA, what should I do? So for this particular person, when I said if you have a job offer, you can apply. So in this section, it mentions that you can submit an application without a LMIA if your work permit expires within 2 weeks. Okay, so make sure this section is bold, and you kind of adhere to this rule. You must include a proof that the LMIA was made. So you have to get the receipt of payment of $1,000 from your employer that the LMIA has been applied.
Mm, yeah.
If you're out of status, you may apply for reinstatement within the 90 days. You can refer this section to fact sheet Inside Canada. If you're outside of 90 days, you may apply for temporary resident permit. If you're unable to support yourself, you may apply for work permit.
Okay, so for example, if I'm US citizen stuck in Northwest Territories and it's complicated for me at this moment to go back to USA, and I'm running out of money and I need to start to work in NWT, can I apply for a work permit?
Okay, so if you are a student, okay, or a visitor, and making a living has become really difficult for you, and you cannot travel back to your home country, it's again very case to case basis, but this is technically similar as destitute students. Okay,
Hmm.
uh, if you cannot financially support yourself, if you cannot go back, so as a US citizen, US borders are not closed, so you can go back to US. So if you, for example, are a student from India, and India is under lockdown and there are no flights, and you cannot support yourself financially, then you may apply or eligible for a work permit.
Okay, I see. Hmm.
IRCC remains available for critical processing. So these are the following critical processing. So they will still be working on TRP issuance for for victims of trafficking, open work permit issuance of vulnerable workers, issuance of H&C, temporary resident permits, and detained pre-approval risk assessment for refugee claim. Okay, so what's happening at the port of entry and CBSA? So when I say CBSA, technically these are the CBSA offices.
Hmm.
Removals have been postponed, except serious criminality. directives have been given to limited number of people who are working in office is for work permit application limited to only essential services. So if you want to apply for work permit, please make an application online. Do not do a paper application. Pre-approval of work permit and printing. So work permit printing. So if you're landing at a port of entry, the CBSA officer might take a longer time to print because of obviously less staff and limited amount number of people working there. Foreign nationals with PR and corp landing, no other work permit and study permit application will be processed. But Edmonton, as I said, online application is still going on. Port of entry application further than deferred by CBSA officers, and there are limited international flights coming in through 4 airports. So another few highlights. Please remember, Canadians, permanent residents, First Nations are permitted to re-enter Canada along with their family members. So here you don't need a letter. Okay. International students and foreign workers outside Canada will not be able to enter Canada by air until is for essential services. Study permit, work permit holder can return to Canada by air if they're accompanied by Canadian citizen spouse. What's happening with Service Canada? So this is really, really crucial for employers. So both Service and obviously, anybody else who are coming into Canada, Service Canada and the job bank call centers are closed. Officers are working from home. LMIA application are still being processed, but really, really delayed. Please remember, Canada has lost a lot of jobs, so it depends on industry to industry, which industry is really, really hiring. So you have to still prove that, there are no people in Canada, and that's why you are applying for the LMIA.
So can I apply for LMIA for non-essential services?
So non-essential services, as I said, it has to be really, so for example, I don't know, speed. So that there's very unique kind of position which you will still not get LMIA. So for example, a technical worker in, let's say, biotech industry, for people like that, even though a lot of Canadians have lost their job, there are no Canadians. In those cases, you can apply for LMIA. Priority processing with minimum recruitment waived till October 31st has been given to certain NOCs.
Okay.
And these are listed out here. So butchers, transportation truck drivers, agricultural farmers. So these people have listed in immigration outside. These people whose processing is now faster because the minimum recruitment also has been waived.
So So these professions have priority in applying for LMIA.
Yes, and the LMIA, they do not have to show recruitment. And this is only valid till October 31st now. Validity of LMIAs have been from 6 months to 9 months. So, so a lot of people who has applied for LMIA or cannot enter, NWT. Basically, they have now 7 months, and also another thing. Low wage, earlier they were getting 1 year. Now they are getting 2 years of employment duration for low wage employers. Job banks. So job bank advertisements are still being approved, but at a delayed basis. So if you are really, really applying for an LMIA, please plan that there would be some delay. For employers who are affected by business closures, no need to contact Service Canada to approve reduced hours or layoffs.
Okay. So just one question. For example, if I'm an employer and I have a number of temporary foreign workers in Canada on labor market assessments, supported work permits, so LMIA, Do I risk non-compliance with the terms of the LMA if I temporarily lay off these employees because of COVID-19?
No. So one thing we have to remember is um, you have to give them the ROEs. And also, there's another thing which has come in. Let's say um, so the answer to your question is no. It's not going to affect. You're not going to be penalized because we all know. But another thing which has really good news which has come in, if you're hiring anyone and you're they're coming in and working for you during this COVID period and they have to self-isolate for 14 days, you have to pay them. So in your LMIU, you have specified they are working for 40 hours and let's say $20. So you have to make sure in those 14 days when they are self-isolating themselves, you have to pay them in those 14 days. And not only that, you have to pay them similar wages and you have to pay them till 30 hours, even though like you cannot reduce their hours and say, I'm going to only pay them 10 hours. No. So
Mm.
make sure you're adhering to those rules. So some of the news for NWT PNP. So PNP is still working at a reduced capacity, and your provincial nominee application and inquiry are still being processed. It's just delay. If you want to apply, drop it in the blue drop box at the Lambridge Towers. PNP, as I said, is still taking all the standard applications. Employers who are not being able to provide 37.5 hours work per week as a result of the COVID, uh, the nominee application are right now on hold.
Mhm. So, for example, will that person lose its PNP if the person lose a job in NWT?
No. So that's what I'm saying, that the PNP nominations are put on hold right now.
Okay, okay.
So some of the other things are panel physicians. So in NWT, we do not have a panel physician. So we are trying right now to work with NTHSSA to get a registered panel physician. But panel physicians are open, still operating other places in Canada, but traveling outside NWT is not recommended. Medical benefits. So temporary foreign workers who have already been residing over 12 months in NWT and has a health benefit card, and they have applied for extension of their work permit, they basically can get an extension of their health care card also, provided they have the proof that they have applied for the work permit extension.
So if my work permit is expiring and I have applied for an extension via paper,
Great question. So
huh?
if you have applied via paper, you have to go into the web form of CIC and upload the receipt of your work permit application through Canada Post and other necessary documents and request for the confirmation of application of your work permit. Language tests.
Yeah.
So we all know in order to apply for PNP and permanent residency, we need language. BC has opened up as of April 17th few of the test centers. Alberta will be following soon. We are trying to set up a mobile test center for CELPIP in an NWT when the borders will reopen. Also note that IELTS and TIFF both have canceled all of their language tests. Just some highlights for client impact. Application, so apply for permits, any kind of permits very early because the processing time is taking too long. Discouraging all travels outside and inside Canada. The new fees have come into place as of April 30th. So for permanent residency, application fee has gone high. So if you are finding it challenging so when you go online and you apply and the fees are showing the same fees before April 30th, pay that fees and the remaining balance, pay it again and submit the receipts through web form. Temporary foreign workers need to be paid, as I said, during their quarantine. Uh, One important thing, if you are coming at the port of entry for any work permit, call the CBSA superintendent before and explain them the situation so that you know that you will not face any problems.
Just a question. So, for example, I want to apply for work permit at the point port of entry. So, how can I improve my chances of?
So as I said, first thing is you have to call the superintendent
Mhm.
at the CBSA office or wherever. So you basically have to go online. There is a phone number given. There's a phone number also given in the immigration in the fact sheet. Um, Call them, find out if even your essential workers, that they'll be able to print all the details for you, technically the work permit. Second important thing is make sure you explain where you're going to stay, explain how you're going to do your grocery and get the medicines without going to the store, and if there is any vulnerable person staying where you're staying. So these are the important thing you need to prepare if you're coming at the port of entry. Please understand biometrics are not done right now across not only Canada but across the world right now. So if you're applying for a work permit or any temporary resident visa and you get the letter for doing biometrics and everything is closed, you will get an extension for 90 days. And after 90 days also, it's already implied that you'll get another 90 days of extension. Great. I'm almost at the end of my immigration part. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to us. There are some resources for you, so you can go into these links. So the first link is of KPIC. It's a really, really good resources here. All IRCC's information has been in conversation by regulated immigration consultant. Daily updates are given in the other links. Even there is a link for international air transportation. So if you need any of these information and updates, you can go onto these links. Um, Alec, onto you for your employment matters.
Thank you, Malini. We have already touched a lot of questions related to employment and immigration. So I will do just a quick overview of the Canada Emergency Benefit and Employment Insurance. So
Mhm.
Service Canada and the Canada Revenue Agency deliver Canada Emergency Response Benefit and Employment Insurance jointly. So it is possible to apply through one or the other, but not both. So if you're employed or recently employed and the cause of your leave is business closure and layoff, or you can apply for regular EI benefits. If there are medical reasons of your leave, you can apply for EI sickness benefits. But both are taxable payments of $573 or 55% of average weekly earnings. So for sickness leave payments last for months, a maximum of 15 weeks, and for regular EI benefits for 14 to 45 weeks. And if you have stopped working because of COVID-19, the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, let's call it CERB, may provide temporary income support. The CERB provides $500 a week up to 16 weeks. So the benefit is available to workers residing in Canada and who are at least 15 years old, who have stopped working because of reasons related to COVID-19 or are eligible for employment insurance, regular sickness, and who get employment or self-employment income of at least $5,000 in 2019 or in the 12 months prior to the date of their application, and who have not quit their job voluntarily. And there is something else. Also on April 15, the government of Canada expanded eligibility criteria for CERB payments. So seasonal workers and those who have recently run out of employment insurance will also now be eligible for CERB, as will people who makes less than $1,000 a month due to the reduced work hours. So applications are online or telephone, and it is the same for self-employment and contractors. If the cause of leave are medical reasons, they apply for EI sickness benefits. If the business reduction is a reason, so they apply for CURB. And to help to determine if the individual should apply for Service Canada or the CRA, person should visit the Canada Emergency Response Benefit webpage.
Great. So I've got some quick questions. So if you're in NWT and you want to apply, let's say, and where do you call? And if you want to apply for government funding, whom do you call?
You can call the Canada Revenue Agency. It's 1-800-622-6232, or for any other GNWT funding, call GNWT.
Okay. So that's the one which is given for GNWT funding is the 867 number. Okay, that's really good in the presentation. So let's say if I'm sick and I have to self-isolate for 14 days, or let's say I have to quarantine. What happens then?
If you're sick, okay, you have EI sickness benefits, so they're available. So ask your employer for record of employment, and even if you don't have it, you should apply online or via telephone. Even if you don't have it, just apply. Apply as soon as possible, even if you don't have your record of employment. And you can apply online. It's important to know also that you do not need a doctor's note for COVID-19. So if you're not receiving EI benefits, your application will automatically be addressed for the Canada Emergency Relief Benefits. So yes, it will be automatically addressed to the other.
Great. Also, what happens if somebody else I'm caring for is sick?
Yeah. So you cannot work because you are caring for somebody. Okay. Yeah. If you paid into employment insurance and you've worked at least 600 hours in the last 52 weeks, you could apply for EI caregiver benefits if somebody is critically ill. If you have already applied for EI caregiver benefits but are not yet receiving benefits, so you will be automatically assessed for the CURB.
Okay. Another quick question. So what happens, let's say I'm stuck at home, because obviously all the schools are closed now and I have to take care of my children. What happens then?
Make sure you're getting your Canada Child benefits from this month. The individuals who received CCB, so Canada Child benefit, in April, will receive $300 per child more in May. But this is a one-time increase to the May 2020 for the 2019-2020 benefit year, which finishes in July, I think.
And last question, what about rent? Let's say if I can't pay rent in NWT, what happens then?
If you don't pay, well, you can see in the presentation that the Territorial Rental Office has suspended evictions hearings. So if you have a question about tenants' rights, you can contact them. Their phone number is 1-800-661-0760.
Great. Thank you so much, Alec. So as you see, we have our contact details in the last section. If you need to get in touch with us, you can either call us or email us. Also just wanted to quickly let you know, a lot of the links are here, but also there is what we call the immigration fact sheets. So there is 2 fact sheets. One is immigration inside Canada. It talks about if you're a visitor and if your status expires, what will happen. If you're a worker, you can restore within 90 days. I'll just quickly run through a few of the points out here. At the port of entry, if you are on an IEC visa and your letter of introduction is expiring, what happens then? It's mentioned. Change of conditional work permit, which we already covered. if you're a visitor or a student whose status have not expired, so let's say you're in Canada and you're stuck and you cannot go back to your home country, you, as a visitor, you will apply for what we call a visitor record. And it is now taking 103 days. But again, everybody is working at a limited capacity. Um, we talked about destitute students or visitors. Um, also, as I said, if you're on an IEC visa or if you're visa exempted, LMI exempted, uh, you can, if you're a visitor visa, you can go at the border, but again, please call the superintendent. And this is a number which I wanted to tell you when I was covering that on the presentation. Work permits, details of other work permits. So these are very, very useful information, which is out here for inside Canada. The similar ones you'll have outside Canada. But thank you so much for listening to us. Please get in touch with us if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.